Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, June 15, 2026 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. We are expecting one member of our planning board who's running a few minutes late, but we have a quorum, so we will begin the meeting. You have the posted meeting agenda. I am proposing, one of us has to leave earlier, that we reverse the order of the public hearing this evening, moving Rhinebeck 2020 LLC now ahead of Rhinebeck. So I'm just switching the order of those two in the agenda because Sean and I did the site visit for 2020 and I'd like Sean present unless we move it a certain time. So I'm trying to accommodate that. Meeting notes. You received Jim's meeting notes. Any comments or questions regarding those? Motion. I have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You have the June 1st minutes in draft form. Are there any corrections, additions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. The first order of business under the business session this evening is correspondence and announcements. And that is related to the sketch plan we had last month for Michael DeCola, 72 to 152 Eastgate Drive. That is that we have received a determination from the zoning enforcement officer dated 6/8/26, and his determination was that no site plan is required for that application. We recall at the last meeting that there was discussion about this. We indicated that we would be looking into it. And that it would go to the zoning enforcement officer, which it did. John, would you like to make a comment on that?
I just wanted to say I brought paper copies of that determination. I'll leave them on the table. Anybody that's interested in it can grab a copy from the table.
Thank you.
Any questions from planning board members?
I just, in my own little investigation into what's behind this, it is clear in the town code that this application has to be, the development has to be connected to farming. And I think that the summary that Mr. DeCola provided does a sufficient job of establishing that it is connected to the farming operation there. And it's part of it, and we really don't have the right to review.
Correct. And I think when you read the determination of the zoning enforcement officer, you will see that that aligns with what we're saying was in the narrative. The additional bit of information I would just share with the public was in situations like this, starting at the time of the determination, there is a right to appeal. Members of the public within 62 days from the issuance of the determination. So it is now out of our hands, but there is still a right on the part of the public or neighbors or whatever to appeal the zoning enforcement officer's opinion, which at that time would go to the zoning board of appeals. So that's the track that is open, not to us.
Just a question, please, now Tom. Is it up for us to appeal this determination to the zoning board of appeals? Or is some procedure from your...
No, our zoning enforcement officer has made a determination as to the site plan review by the planning board. He has determined that there's no reason for it to come before us. So as far as I know, John can comment on that, but I think this planning board is officially out of the process.
Yes, that's correct. But any aggrieving party can bring an appeal directly to the zoning board of appeals from that decision. It would be an interpretation appeal, and that has to be done within 62 days of the date of the decision.
Okay, thank you.
May I add something? In my reading of the egg and markets material that was provided, they talk about special conditions such as agricultural buildings that are meant to be used by the public, such as a brewery with a tasting room. And they make the comment in that material that in cases like that, site plan review might be indicated. In a brief discussion with John just now, John pointed out that our town law would specify that, when a building is to be used by the public, site plan review is indicated. But this would require a change in our zoning law. And so I would like to propose that we, the planning board, suggest to the town board that this be pursued. I think that we're likely to see many more applications like this, many more developments like this. And so it would make sense to straighten it out in our own code.
I would agree with you. I would also like to add that, as you know, the planning board has consistently over a number of years, as early as 2017 and as recently as last year, participated in subcommittee meetings to look at things in the zoning law that could be corrected, amended, added, deleted, whatever. And we repeatedly forwarded those recommendations as recently as February onto the town board to encourage them to take up the thoughts that the planning board had. So in addition to this one, where I agree with you, I think that this is going forward a very opportune time to look at the comprehensive plan, which was begun in 2005 and finalized in 2009, and is thus nearly 20 years old and deserving of a relook. I'm not personally suggesting that you can do a complete overhaul, but 20 years is a long time. Communities change, and I think going forward, I would be encouraging leadership to take a look at it and work with members of the public, members of the planning board, members of the zoning board, whoever, to take a look at all of these things.
I certainly agree with that, but I think that there are specific things that come up from time to time, and I think this is one where a change could be made in a particular area of the zoning law without waiting for that kind of relook at the comprehensive plan. And many of the suggestions we've sent through to the board are of that nature. There are things that will cut down on process time and so forth. So I think this is one of those that they should act on soon.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John, if you correct me if I'm wrong, I think underlying this is actually state law that establishes the right to farm.
Well, remember we talk about this from time to time, that the planning board is a creature of the New York State town law. That's the state law that authorized the creation of planning boards. And the town law is also the law that sets forth what limits of authority can be given to a planning board. And so the agriculture and markets law sets forth what Ed is talking about. There's guidance. The State Department of Agriculture and Markets doesn't, the state policy is that they don't want local land use regulation creating an undue burden on farming. And so there are times when, even when site plan review is required or variances are required under a local zoning law, and farms that qualify as farms under the state definition of farms get relaxed treatment under those. And there are times when, for certain things, that farmers don't have to get any approval for. And so in this particular case, what Ed is talking about is the Department of Agriculture and Markets is acknowledging that when you have agritourism uses like the one that Mr. Ticola is proposing, that involve inviting the public to the farm, and then associated with that are traffic and parking and lights and maybe noise and things like that. What they're saying is that that's an instance where local review would be appropriate. But in order for local review to take place, it has to be required by the local land use laws. And in this particular case, what the zoning enforcement officer has decided is that, according to Rhinebeck zoning law, the use proposed by Mr. Ticola does not require site plan Sorry for a long-winded
No,
explanation.
thank you for
Hopefully
clarifying
that
that.
helps.
Thank you very much. We have moved this evening old business up to the beginning of the meeting. And under old business, we have Darren Prinz and Kelly Swissacker Hook Road site plan review for the construction of a single-family dwelling covered terraces and ground floor with villas. Nate, good evening. John, I'm gonna call on you again to bring us up to date on what has transpired since our last meeting with Prince and Swiss.
So, as you know, there's a application for site plan approval and a wetlands permit that's pending in front of the planning board. There's a provision but there's also an outstanding violation that was issued by the zoning enforcement officer against the property for some work that was done without approval. And as you know, pursuant to the Rhinebeck zoning law, the planning board is not allowed to issue an approval with an outstanding violation pending. So what has happened is, in parallel with the review that you've done of the application for site plan review and for the wetlands permit, the zoning enforcement officer has been working with the applicant to come up with a plan to resolve the outstanding violation. And that mostly has involved discussions about a remediation plan that would involve the replanting of some of the trees that were taken, or all of the trees that were taken down, and also a repair of the stone wall running along Hook Road that was damaged during the work. The applicant and Brian have reached an agreement on what needs to be done, and the plan that was submitted by the applicant for the remediation work has been approved. There is a notice of violation resolution letter that's been signed by Brian and signed by the applicants. One of the other conditions of the letter was that the applicant post a $3,200 deposit in the town escrow account to fund an inspection and report by the town's consultant once the remediation plan has been implemented to make sure that it was done. One of the requirements of the plan, if you recall, Dr. Kiviat from Hudsonia went out and inspected the property after the work had been done and submitted a written report to the planning board about what would need to be done in order to remediate. And a copy of that was provided to the applicant, and the applicant and Brian Tam, the CEO, are in agreement to follow the provision, the table in that plan that talks about remediation. So, and also today, in addition to signing the agreement, the applicants also delivered to Gretchen a check for the escrow deposit. So, the resolution letter provides that when the applicants sign and when the applicants deliver their check for escrow, the notice of violation is lifted. So that's been resolved. That no longer stands as an impediment to the planning board taking action on the site plan and wetlands permit applications. You have in front of you on paper, I also sent you a link to the electronic version. There's a resolution before you. It's a little bit longer than what you're used to seeing, but we felt that given the history of this application, that it would be good to just make sure that the story of how we got to where we are today is told. So there's a resolution approving the site plan and also the wetlands permit, and there are some conditions that are attached to the approval as per the help from Jim Levy and Christian Moore from CPL. The rest of the resolution is really, a lot of it's a recitation of the story of how we got here, but the determination has been made by Jim and by Christian that the applicants have fulfilled the zoning law requirements for site plan approval and for a wetlands permit, subject to the conditions that are in the resolution. Also, a condition to the resolution is the successful implementation of the remediation plan and a inspection and report from the town's consultant confirming that afterward. If that, if you were to vote to adopt this resolution tonight, then this matter will pass on to the building department. And it'll be up to them to make sure that before a certificate of, or a build, well, I don't know, a building permit, Christina probably knows what the sequence is, but at the very least, I think the resolution says before a certificate of occupancy is issued for the house. So that'll allow the applicants to do this while they're doing some construction. Then, you know, whatever defects are found in the implementation of the remediation plan will have to be fixed before the certificate of occupancy can be issued. So that's what the sort of check is on that piece there. But otherwise, as far as I know, the application is positioned to be approved tonight should the board decide to do that.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah, we worked with that offline and we're in agreement.
And you've seen a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you have anything you want to add? Planning board members, any comments?
I read it at home. I'm ready to vote aye. I don't know if everyone here had an opportunity to read it because it, you know, you're right kind of late. Should we take a minute to make sure everyone has had a chance to read it?
That's,
I have a suggestion about that. So we only got the signed version of this morning. And so we didn't know whether this was going to go forward tonight until this morning. So I'm sorry about the timing, but that's why.
You're gonna read it?
Huh?
You're gonna read it? It's,
I can if you want.
Oh, you did such a good job of summarizing.
Well, I did. What I was gonna say to you is this. If you want to take a couple of minutes, and you may want to do that, I would start on, you'll see that at the bottom of page 5, there's a paragraph that says, now therefore be it resolved. So the body of this resolution,
there are, if anyone's interested, and you want to read along, there are additional copies here that the public can access if they wish to, so.
Yeah.
Can you-
so there's at the bottom of page 5, there's there now therefore be it resolved. If you just read the 2 pages that follow that, those are the action items for this resolution tonight. The rest of the resolution as it precedes that just discusses the story of how we got here and how the application complies with site plan and wetlands permit requirements. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
There aren't any departures from the subject matter that we've been discussing all along.
No, as you know, during the course of the planning board's review of the application, one of the areas where there was a disagreement between the board and the planning board was the location of the driveway that was being proposed. This is for the development of a piece of property with a single-family home that's adjacent to a historic district. That's why site plan review is required. And the applicant agreed during the review process to move the location of the driveway, and that's been done. And a new plan, an amended plan body the driveway in that location has been submitted and reviewed by Jim and by Christian.
And it was my feeling that really the only thing that was holding this up was the approval, the lifting of the violation notice.
That's correct.
There were a couple of minor incidental things that have been mentioned by Christian Moore, but those are easily resolved. And should they not be resolved, that would hold up the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, and those are good. Those are listed as a condition of
Right, okay, and that's, going forward with building permit, I think is a perfectly reasonable approach.
What did-
Well, so I was just gonna say, if you wanted to read it, only sections A2 on page 6 and section D on page 7 are different than what we typically have in the resolution for application, so you don't have to read the whole thing, the other sections are all standard links, but we have the resolution.
Yeah, an earlier version of this was sent out last week.
Any board members? Are you comfortable?
No, I just have one quick thing. There was a pretty substantial stone wall towards the top of over here. That was also significant damage during that process. And we just negate that, or do we?
John, I believe the stone walls are,
There's only one mentioned.
I can't hear.
Sean, are you talking about the one on the road?
No, I'm talking about the one up towards. I'll show you this, but okay. There's one up, basically right where the property turns.
Yeah.
There's one up here that was significant, probably like 4 feet in size. I don't have photos of it. So it's not on this.
Yeah, that's a tree survey.
Right, well, it also mentions,
Yeah,
the stone walls are accurate.
stone walls.
Yeah, so I just don't know.
Well, it's well
I'm not looking to like have to hold up the application tonight, it's not my purpose of bringing that, but like, if it's not mentioned on this, could we add it? Would we,
Well, a lot of the discussion that we've had over the years has been the value of the stone wall along Agar Hut versus the internal stone walls and the value of the wetlands that are internal to the property, and that's been kind of a whole thing that took all this time. So, where we landed was an agreement to put back the stone wall that is along the public way. And the trees that are documented.
so we have to bring it to.
others?
Yeah, I mean, I would have preferred both stone walls have been incorporated in that remediation, just because there was significant pictures of and we saw it of how much it was disrupted. You know, I agree, I'm not trying to go backwards, I know they put a lot of time into this, but I do wish that it was plural, and that's all the time.
Others?
Can that be added? Can that condition be added?
Well, we didn't do anything to the walls that were internal to the property, but they're gonna have to be moved in order to put the driveway. It's kind of the entire point in the second driveway. So you can't have it both ways, like we can't preserve every stone wall. I mean, we would have been done a year and a half ago if we went with the smaller disturbance of stone walls, which was the little bit along.
Just to clarify, not the one with the new driveway, it's just like halfway up the cut-in from Ackerd Hook, there was another one, not the one with the new driveway going that we're talking about.
The electric's gotta come up that way anyway.
So, we have been working with Brian Tam as the zoning enforcement officer, and Brian is the party that has the authority to lift the, notice of violation. And the conditions that have been established have been reviewed by Brian and approved by him. And so,
Great, so we, just on record, Lisa and I are just bringing that up.
yep,
Next.
understood,
And,
yep.
you know, where you can, I mean, I don't think we're ready to change this. I think Brian has worked hard on this and that's his determination, and I don't think we can use that. You know, where you can, in good faith, when you see opportunities to repair or, you know, rebuild sections of stone wall, that would be good. So,
No.
I think we can just put that in the record and ask for that consideration as you move forward. And sensitivity to any other stone walls that you may find as the work is unfolding. Okay. Well, I think you have the resolution, if you all have a chance to look at it now.
Yes,
May I have a motion?
I move we accept.
Second. I have a second, I think we will hold the board here. Craig?
Aye.
Sean?
I,
Sharon? Aye. Edna? Aye. Elise? And I vote aye.
Thank you.
so Lisa and I put it out.
Yeah. Good luck with your project. New applications. The first up this evening is Marie Laure Chapimont, Rutherford, LLC, 426 Roseville Road, site plan, special use permit for center. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mark Nowinski, representing Sean Moss, Primrose Bird LLC. Purpose of this application is to, Primrose Bird is proposing, well, there's an existing orchard located right here. I'll just step back. This, a couple of years ago, we were in an application reviewed by this board, also the ZBA. For it's for the conversion of the garage to a pool house, and there was a large pool. There's some work that was done around the pool. This was a garage that became a pool house. We did sanitary design for that. Did a summary and inventory of all the structures on the property, which required us to go to the CBA for an area variance. And so ultimately, that application was approved both by this board and also the ZBA. I also note there was New York State DEC wetlands on the southeastern portion of the property. That has gone through, I provided in this application to the board. I reached out to DEC with the jurisdictional determination, got a letter back, they requested a letter from DEC directly, so we didn't have to go through the 100 days, just for, and I did provide in the application, an email noting that this delineation is still valid, so it's still here. There's only a 100-foot buffer associated with it. And, again, obviously, it's located on the south side of Primrose Hill Road. So, as speaking to this application, is that there's an existing orchard right here. Here's the driveway. So Primrose Hill Road, here's the driveway. And just a heads up also, as part of the construction of the sanitary system is ongoing right now. Part of that approval was construction of a construction road right here. We got Dutchess County Department of Highways approval to do that. So there's actually needed to have a construction road and bring the bill and construction services. But back to here's the existing entrance. Here's the residence pool house pool, and so to the north of that, in this area that I outlined right here, is an orchard. Well, some of us really enjoy that, but so do the deer and the bear. So the proposal is to provide an 8-foot high fence around the entire garden to protect the orchard. And so here's a snapshot of what's being proposed. The wood posts, Blackwater, and so it requires consideration this board for site plan special permit due to this location, due to the proximity of that orchard, and that's related to front setback to Primrose Hill Road. And it also requires consideration of the CBA due to the height of the fence. It's proposed to be 8 feet high. That application has already been presented and discussed with the ZBA, and we actually had a public hearing for consideration of the area variance of the height of the fence on this one. But for this board's consideration, it's the requirement is for site plan special permit, which is for the construction of the fence. And we also provided other drawings of the fence, but here's a snapshot of what's being proposed.
Not much from me. Most of the things been addressed. If you remember, we did look at this from the ZBA referral, and asked them to hold off until you were able to take a look at it in more detail. Other than the view from the road, it's not a scenic road. I don't see any issues with it. We have looked at a couple other fences in the RC5 that are very similar to this. This might be a little closer to the road than a couple of the others, but it's pretty typical for some larger lots in the RC5, so I'm going to see some.
Any board members? Questions, comments?
People there.
Oh, I was gonna ask the same question. Are you confident about the bear?
That's what they said. I don't know.
Deer maybe, I'm not so sure that they'll live here.
At least it's not, nothing else.
Remains to be seen.
Depends how determined the bear.
Anything else? All right, can we have a draft?
Procedural resolution.
Procedural resolution.
The draft procedural resolution for the board's consideration for the application of John Christophe and Marie Laurie Shondemont for site plan special use permit out of chapter 125 for the added of construction of a fence, 426 Primrose Hill Road in the Rescue Fire Zoning District. Accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2 under secret, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We will schedule the public hearing for July 20th, or earlier than 6:05 p.m. We'll send it to the CAB as a referral, and we need 2 planning board members to accept it.
I will do it.
I'll join you.
Again, the motion, please.
So, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, that's a type 2 action under secret, you can say.
I would say fence is part of the
The next new application this evening is out of Michael Road, 4th Patton Road, site plan, special use permit, wetland permit for fencing. Good evening. Introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like to do.
Yes, my name is Michael Broad, and I'd like to complete the fencing of a portion of the property which I began some time ago.
the second one.
This one. Okay, so there's this fence here, and a fence along the back. And apparently, as I said, I began the fence not knowing that I needed a permit to build a fence. I worked with Brian Tam. He told me what I had to do to apply for the necessary variances to do what I was doing and hope to complete. And that's what I tried to explain in my application here. And I don't know what else I can tell you, except that the fence was put in backwards. It's one thing I learned, so I agreed with Brian that I would skin this on the front so it looked like that. And mostly my intent was to block some of the pollution from 308. I'm an artist. I've converted my barn into a studio. I share with my daughter, who's also an artist. But the amount of noise and the general pollution coming off 308 is sort of overwhelming. And the other thing I did, which apparently I also have now applied for grants for, is to put the fence boards together, because one of the things we get to do to the curvature of 308 is headlights. And the oncoming traffic appears to be driving right into the property, and it's quite disconcerting. So but that would be this fence here, because your traffic is coming down this way. The fence along Patton Road was constructed according to the building codes, living proper space. It's 4 feet high, and I don't know what else to say. I'm embarrassed that I put everybody through all this, but here I am,
So you're,
feeling to complete it.
so does the variance include the fact that you will not be able to see through this fence?
Yes,
Because it will not be, there will not be the ability to see through it, correct? When it's completed, all of it.
no, just the one along 308 and the one that traverses the property that takes all the incoming headlights. The one that runs along Patton Road is 4 feet high and has 2-inch spacing between the fence boards. And was built right side out.
Jim?
Okay, so again, if you remember last month, we saw this one is also a referral from the ZBA, said to hold off until you can take another look at it. Michael has done a wetlands delineation. I believe the DEC did take jurisdiction on this.
I'm sorry?
The DEC took jurisdiction for the wetlands.
Yes, I notified them and asked them to come out. I was told maybe they'll come, maybe they won't, we have 100 days to do it in.
So we'll need to hear from them, the board will need to hear from them. I put the pictures up there so you can take a look at it. Like I said, he's going to put the post on the inside, which is the way the fences are supposed to be made built. And really, I have no other comments. It's really more discussion about post fence, the installed ones.
Where's the wetland?
What was right here is this kind of crucial lines.
Oh, I see.
So just it cuts through the buffer. I mean, most of the property is actually in the buffer.
What happened is the wetlands begin on this side 308. And there's a culvert that brings it out, and the culvert comes through just about here, and then the rest of our property has the wetlands on it through to across Patton Road and the Nine Points property. So my fence sort of ends where the culvert comes under 308. And I left room underneath the fence so there'd be no impediment to any water flow coming down from the other side.
And so Michael has applied for a wetland permit as well, because it's all in the buffer. Well, a good portion of the fence.
Any other members? Jim?
So this is just a privacy barrier, it's not an enclosure. You're not gonna be adding anything to what's on the plan there. You're just gonna be
This is just
correcting it and getting the approval for having built it in the first place.
correct.
And the contention was that the finished surface needs to face outward rather than in toward you.
Correct.
Okay.
Or I could have 2 finished surfaces, which I'll wind up with, which I enjoy anyway. But mostly it's just privacy and again, the sound and the exhaust and everything else is, we're right on 308.
And that determination will be the zoning board of appeals as to whether or not they're allowed to include the close or not. Anyone else? Jim?
Draft resolution for the board consideration for the application by Michael Broad for site plan, special use permit, and wetland permit under township chapter 125 and chapter 120 for fence and 4 Patton Road in the diversified zoning district. Accepting the application, supporting documents is at further review. Classifying the actions type 2 under seeker for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule the application for July 20th, no earlier than 6:05 p.m. We'll send it to CAB for review. We'll send it to HAPAC because this is historic property, although the fence is already constructed. Use the planning board members to do the same.
I'll go. Is that the lease? Yeah, I'll go.
I'll go with the piece.
And if the planning board could, having seen the application, finish the response to the ZBA referrals, that would be great, because having the planning board action classified as type 2 allows the zoning board of appeals to proceed with their adjudication.
Do you know if Gretchen or you might know if the zoning board of appeals has scheduled a site visit?
The public hearing's Wednesday, and we'll do the site visit after the public hearing.
So perhaps the folks making the site visit can coordinate with the zoning board of appeals if possible. At least reach out to them and see if it can be accomplished in one visit rather than 2. Have a motion? Hello, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carried. They'll be in touch with you to schedule a site visit.
Thank you.
The next application this evening is that of Gabrielle Kenzer, 3 Buttonwood Lane, site plan, special use permit, and wetlands permit, addition, interior renovations, and landscaping. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Angel on behalf of Gabrielle Kenzer, who's here with her husband, and also accompanied by Marissa Angel. No relative, although I would like to remember he is a relative, but there's not. He's a landscape architect who's running the site plan. We've set forth what we're looking for, and we're happy to answer any questions. It's a relatively minor renovation of the house in terms of footprint. It's primarily a patio right now that we have a closed porch with a deck on top. There's some interior renovations, an existing bedroom, having a bathroom, so most of what we're proposing is constituting the wetlands, restoring them, and also redoing the hardscape around the house that's already existing, but not really expanding it. So we're happy to answer any questions. We did send a judicial letter to DTC requesting them to determine whether or not they're going to be involved in March. We have not heard back on the regulations were thrown out since then, so I'm not quite sure. We're not in the DEC wetland area, but I understand we're in a federal area, so we're happy to proceed, help with the board electives. Answer any questions.
So, you know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot proposed, a lot of landscaping. I think the addition to the house is approximately 375 square feet, which would be a screen porch and a deck with a spiral staircase. It's pretty modest. There's a lot of landscaping changes proposed to the property. So we had noted before at the pre-conference that if there's more than an acre disturbed, this would be required. If it's less than an acre, so we would require to see that. Even fairly determination. We had talked about a rock wall that was there, and you noted that they appeared to have been placed when the house was built, which was in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah.
So we don't believe that that's a historic stone wall. You have indicated on the plans that the septic and buried propane tank are shown as to be verified by the contractors. You know, we've gone through this a couple times, so as we go through this, you can decide if you.
It's actually, we've actually
What's that?
we've mapped where
Do
the
you not apply here?
Yeah.
I just missed that. Okay.
we also mapped all the trees that we wanted to know where they were, which ones
Or
are
something.
yeah.
Great. You know, some other things, there is a deer fence proposed, to go around most of the, oh no, wait, that's not the one part of the application.
We are requesting a new fence. There was an existing fence that's no longer part of the
That was next door, right?
Yes.
Okay. You was proposed a boulder with a retaining wall at the end of the driveway, you know, that's not extending above the existing grade. It's replacing an existing timber retaining wall, so it shouldn't require a fence permit. Took care of tagging the trees. All the uplighting that had been on there originally has been removed, so we're okay with the dark side compliant lighting. You did provide us with a ton of existing conditions photos, so I appreciate that. Those. You did note that a new roof, siding, and windows may be installed. I think the board would probably want to know whether or not that will be taking place or not, because we would want to know for sure if we make those plans. Particularly as I think as it relates to the siding, windows, roof, maybe not so
The
much.
windows is still a question.
Okay, so we can discuss that one. The northern long-eared bat is found in the area, which you did note. There are state standards for when you can take trees down based on the bats. You just have to pay attention to those. And other than that, I just think no real issues with the zoning code that I could find. The plans are stamped, but there was a signature on them, so obviously somebody will need a signature on Paul's plans. Not just the Sarah picture. Yeah, these are stamped, but not necessarily signed. So that's a minor thing. Take care of that. Yeah, and then I think the board should take a look at the deer fencing because we would have looked at these in other locations, but this is a bit more suburban. It's more of a compacted area with other houses nearby. So take a look at the installation and see what you think. But overall, I don't see any major issues. Just give some clarifications.
What is the special permit for?
New fence.
The fence?
Deer fence. So just the concepts of the deer fence, it's that a lot of snipping landscape is done.
That's,
And where's the wetland line?
It's actually very up to the house.
Second one.
So it's this line, because,
I guess I was not seeing what line you were referring to. Is it on the,
yeah, there's a dash line,
oh, the dash line?
yeah, so,
That's the what, the wetland?
yeah, and there's also another screen for it as well. And another weapons on it.
So almost everything is in the wetland buffer. How did that happen?
Good question.
We think it's an old, possibly an old irrigation pond or something along these lines.
So what is?
The water area here, so.
When you walk on the property, the topography is not what you think of as a typical wetland. It rises up from the pond. And when you're walking on it, it doesn't feel like you're walking in a swamp. But I'm not quite sure how that is. It was, you flagged it, so you have an actual
like, this is the parcel, so it's part of a much larger, area.
Right,
Once from the site, this is the pond.
that's the pond and the house is small.
circular.
Correct.
So the other side here.
You come to the site of
The wetlands characterizations rely on soil types and vegetation, so it doesn't necessarily have to be wet underfoot.
The majority of work that's proposed is landscaping. The structural part that's being done is actually over an existing patio, right? Existing sort of patio sill.
That's maybe a foot or a half.
So the majority of the new structure is over existing surveyed area that's already paved or patio. So the majority of the work that's being done is the landscaping and work around the pond.
We're also proposing to take down the existing facilities that are on outbuildings.
And where are they?
What a way to put it.
I can.
You go, there's a site preparation plan right there, so there's, yeah, there's those two sheds and there's another shed too.
So the primary structure is in the wetland, right? Is that how I
The
understand
designated
it? Right.
federal, but
Okay. And have you noticed any problems in the basement of the house with water?
but actually the basement was renovated fairly recently. It's good.
No water?
Buildings that are being taken down, or those have a slab or a footing or anything like that, or just about sitting on piers?
Yeah, the one's like an old sauna, and it's just kind of in the shed that we're going to protect some.
So there's not further disturbance that's gonna be involved in taking them out.
Correct.
These steep slopes.
It's not really steep, spread.
Yeah, opposite is very, very shallow slopes.
And these are,
I just wanted to say, there's no stream entering that part of the property at all.
The stream is off to the side there.
The stream is off to the side. So, how is water then entering the wetland area? What is making it wet?
So our understanding of the site is that this is a higher area, water is falling on the ground somewhere here, and then it's gradually making its way down.
in Wisconsin, wetlands aren't always wet. depends on the soil characteristics, so it could be that it's just the soils that are there. This is how it's done.
They could flag it first, so we could go on there first. And
That would suggest that there's soils that retain moisture, i.e. they support wetland.
the concept of landscaping is usually plants that are appropriate, and plants that are not appropriate.
Yeah, we did notice quite a significant infestation of yellow flag iris around this pond, which is an invasive plant. And so what we're trying to do is really restore as much of what we believe indigenous wetland in this area would look like. Take that out, naturalize the edge, and add in a lot more habitat around the pond, and hopefully improve drainage patterns.
How deep is the pond?
It's only like 3 or 4 feet deep. It's very, very shallow.
And then just to show you, since we are looking at changes to the house, I'll put those plans up.
So you can see off to the left there, what's being added in terms of additional structure. And you can see what's being changed in profile.
Is that the only entry to that bedroom?
No,
The
it's
spiral,
interior.
there is an interior aspect that they set up. But you have to go through the other room, right?
That's right. There's a door there.
Yes.
Soft step.
But so you have to go through something called an office.
Right.
And is that office pre-existing?
Yes.
There is. And so this then makes a total of how many bedrooms?
Doesn't change the bedroom. There's a bedroom right there now. Just the bathroom.
The guest room is there now?
Yes.
I see, so it's a two-way to get through.
Correct. And it's also a bathroom. Also making it.
Right. So you're a four-bedroom, is that how it is?
Correct.
And the septic system supports that.
Correct. So changing the bedroom. Really a reminder is
Planning board members, any other questions? Jim?
so we need to go to the ZBA. So can you make that referral or should we just go on?
You can begin the process, go to the ZBA, and let them correct the review. Speak to Gretchen about that.
So we received a resolution for the board consideration for the application by Gabriel Tenzer for site plan special use permit, wetland permit under time code chapter 125 and chapter 120 for additions, landscaping, grounds changes to the existing home and property. Buckywood Road in the RC5. Accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classified the actions type 2 under secret for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule the public hearing for July 20th. We'll send it to the CAB for review and we need 2 planning board members to go site visit.
I think I'd like to go. I'll go for this. Okay, may I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. So we have to do schedule the second set.
Okay.
That concludes the applications for this evening, and now we'll move into public hearings. 968 Route 308 LLC, 968 Route 308 is requesting a continuation to our July 20 meeting. May I have a motion to continue? So moved. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. That will bring up next, as I announced at the beginning, our reversing the order of the next two and asking Rhinebeck 2020 LLC now 2308 minor subdivision, re-subdivision of 50 lots to come forward at this time.
Hi, so Brittany Burnhouse and Sean Pandora, here on behalf, here on behalf of Rhinebeck 2020 LLC. As you are aware, we are still proposing our re-subdivision to add the third lot. Since the last meeting, I believe you guys have conducted a site walk, which was outstanding, and I have gotten confirmation today about doing that. If I remember that the driveway, it's not on this plan, we got an updated plan and we sent it to Jim Lucky Gretchen today. He just wanted the dimensions of the turnoffs, and we added that and sent that to him today, and he just held off on it, and I forwarded that to the clerk. So I believe all that's outstanding is just the DOT approval, which can be a condition.
I think that's all we're waiting on. I don't have any issues.
Okay, there was a letter from the neighbor. There was a letter from the neighbor, and Sean and I did the site visit, and we're happy to report on that. We received a letter from the neighbor. The neighbors that were here at the last meeting, I don't believe they're here this evening. I don't see them. We did offer them the opportunity to submit their comments in writing, ask for them to get them to us as quickly as possible. They were only received this afternoon, but I think Sean and I can talk about it. So we can say, right, Sean, let's start.
So as Melody mentioned, they did a site visit. There was concern that they got a letter about dirt removal, about clearing of a pond, about changing of the landscape, about removing of trees. I will report that there is absolutely zero evidence of that on the site visit. We spent probably 25 minutes touring this entire site by vehicle. We went to each site where the houses were proposed. In that, you had to drive by the pond and see the rest of the property. So I'll just say that on record. That's what I witnessed. Other than that, it's a beautiful site. It's just rolling hills, and I think the current proposal of this property could be 3 lots, but it could be definitely much more. It's a really nice way of doing it. I know there's also concern around the heart, I believe, which is not going to be currently touched. That's on the lower half of this property, to the left. But that's what I'll touch on, and I'm sure all of you have something to add.
I would only add that the relations of houses are well situated away from each other. There is the possibility that the house on lot 2 may be seen from neighboring properties in the off-season, but I also understand the property to the east is also owned by the capital as well. But in the north side, there are houses and just sketchbooks of them. But I think they've been well sited, and they certainly aren't going to be distracting from each other in their location. When you're inside the property, there's very little that's visible in all directions. And I doubt from Route 308 that you may be able to pick up the house on lot 3, but you will, in my opinion, not see anything on 1 and 2. Even looking at, when you're at the property on one, you're coming down, the views to the adjacent houses are quite well screened as well. I don't think, this is an improvement over even the last iteration, which, had several different means of access to the property. So I don't think I didn't have the letter in hand when we were in the field, but in reading it today, I just can't wrap my head around mounds and other terminology that was used there that doesn't make sense. I didn't see any evidence of, I'm just using this word broadly, I didn't see any evidence of clear cutting or anything around the pond. Everything clean, natural, to us.
I think the word brush hogging was used previously, that's exactly it. I mean, you've noticed the trees are clearing, there's no stop, like, you notice the surface. Yeah, it's still growing.
I'd like to address that too. So these are the exact same comments that the same neighbors made at the October 17, 2022 meeting, so when we came in for the first subdivision. At that time, Rod Morrison, our engineer, stated that there would be, we fixed the culvert at the time because it was flooding into the road and, my client on their own fixed it because it was affecting the road and the properties. Since the original, subdivision construction, heavy machinery has not left this property in 4 years. The only thing that we've been doing is mowing the lawn, I confirm with my client, and bushwhacking around the pond. There's been absolutely no, besides small, brush, there's been no tree removal. In fact, there's not been any machinery at all, besides the lawn.
There was no evidence of tree stumps or anything like that around. And as far as conversation was with the had to do with wetness, we know that recently there was a water main break across 308, and that was repaired, I believe by the state, is that correct? I believe that's right. And I do know from neighbors that they were commenting that rushing water from the water main over a period of time was kind of backwashing on the property at the foot of the road. So that has been corrected by the state, to my knowledge.
I guess the last thing I'll have, the current driveways are farm roads. It wouldn't be fresh cuts, the trees or anything down. Your current farm roads that we're actually able to travel with a vehicle. So there's very little additional work to be done on that. And then also where the houses are going, those are currently mowed, those grass lots. So again, there's very little disturbance that I could see.
And really, the only thing that we're reviewing is this new number 3 lot.
Correct.
Everything else has been previously approved.
Even the driveway.
Yes, that was going on the current
Our
lot.
lot lines changed a little bit, but yes, the layout of the driveways were all approved previously. Which is
Yeah.
why, when we're looking at potential condition approval with DOT, we did approve essentially the driveway location where it is now 2 lots, and when they talked about adding 1 additional lot, I don't think they're gonna have an issue with that, but certainly if there's a condition, they come back to something, realize there's an approval. But given that they approved it too, I don't foresee the problem, but I can't think of it, to be honest.
So any of the public wishing to comment on this application? Not making a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those abstentions, motion carries. Have a seeker?
We do. That's right, before we go to this one, so seeker resolution, yeah, so the seeker resolution, we'll need to go through the part 2, which I have brought up. Just walking through this, we've done this many times. So let's walk through them one by one, as we usually do. First question, will proposed action create material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in change in the use or intensity of the use of land?
No.
Well, so it's nowhere small impacts, just to make it impact here. Right? Nowhere small impacts, large. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? We don't have a CDA in town, so that's a no. Will the proposed action result in adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure of mass transit, biking, and walking? No, small. Will the action cause an increase in the use of energy if that's appropriately available in conservation or renewable communities? The next question is, will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies or public or private water treatment facilities? Will the action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the action result in adverse changes to natural resources? No. Will the action result in increase the potential of erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. And will the action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Okay. So with the finding of no or small impact, we'll go to the secret resolution. Proposed action seeking approval for minor subdivision from the planning board to subdivide two existing lots, 31.36 acres and 19.52 acres in size. It was approved by the planning board as a two-lot subdivision into 3 lots. Proposal now calls for a 26.68 acre lot, 17.27 acre lot, and a 6.93 acre lot. The Rhinebeck Planning Board in its role as duly established lead agency under seeker and upon review and completion of the short EAF and associated information, hereby issues a negative declaration under seeker deeming an environmental impact statement is not required, stating such will not be prepared in consideration of the minor subdivision of this property. Taking this action, the planning board approves the project to move forward, and the proposed actions are hereby approved for implementation, obviously subject to the solution.
Your motion?
So moved.
Second. All board, Greg?
Aye.
Evelyn? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Carolyn? Aye. Elise?
Should we
Let's just be curious about apologies. I vote aye. Motion carries. Good luck.
Who the resolution is?
Okay.
One more, sorry, everything longer. Approval resolution asking the board to act as follows on the application by Rhinebeck 2020 LLC, a minor subdivision special use permit in the town code chapter 101 and chapter 125, for subdivision of 2 lots and 3 lots on ER State 308, near 5. Reaffirming the action is unlisted under seeker, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required, and stating that the seeker approval resolution has been completed. Based upon the review of the submitted information, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives stated in chapter 101. With respect to the special use permit to undertake the subdivision, finding the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with general standards for special use permits, and asking the board to grant the requested special use permit. With respect to the minor subdivision, asking the board to approve the application inclusive of the materials submitted in minor subdivision plan sheets prepared by Richard Rhinebeck. It was an August 8th date, we will update that with the new file date. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan, subject to the 3 conditions listed there, and we will condition this on DOT approval of the driveway entrance.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All board, Greg?
Aye.
Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Carolyn? I vote aye. Thank you. You're welcome. The next public hearing this evening is that of Elizabeth Gomakis, 41 Hook Road, site plan review and wetlands permit for renovation and additions.
Hi, my name is Elsa Tallis. I'm here representing the Art of Building and Elizabeth Gomakis. Would you like me to walk through the entire presentation again, or sort of quick notes version? Entire presentation?
No.
So that's
So the site is, can you go down, so the site is at the corner of Hook Road and Lemon Lane. It's an existing historic house, which is right here. The first section of it was built in the late 1700s, and an addition was placed on it in the early 1800s. Our proposal is to add 2 small additions, a single-story gable roof addition on the western side of the house, and 2 bay window additions off the northern side of the house united beneath a single half-foot roof. We're also proposing basically a single stacked stone retaining wall here to help create a more level pad at the northern side of the house, which currently dies off very dramatically. And then some terraced gardens which replicate existing construction that our client has installed previously. On the site, there's also a 20th century garage right here, and a historic one right here. And then this parking area, which is existing, as well as this little path right there, which is also existing, and we are proposing to work there. The site is really dominated by wetlands. Can you go down a couple more pages? Would you like a couple more pages? Thank you very much. This is what I was thinking. So this right here on the survey is the wetland boundary, and as you can see, the existing house and the other buildings on the site are within that 100-foot buffer, as is the work that we're proposing. We are, however, proposing work that's kind of in an area that's surrounded by construction that's already happened, and that's adjacent to this parking area, it's next to this existing garage, and we're hoping that as construction kind of in that zone that we won't have to reach impact on the site. Can I click down a couple more? I can talk through that architecture. So up here is the existing first floor plan. We're proposing an interior renovation, which is basically to expand the kitchen and change up the dining area a little bit. We're proposing refinishing some of these two floors, which are in bad shape. And then this is the larger of the two additions that we're proposing, which is basically just a small bathroom, staff washer and dryer with a folding closet next to it, 2 little closets, a hall, and then full bath right here. We're also proposing an addition here, which is like a little sort of open off in the living room, and an addition here to expand the footprint of the existing kitchen a little bit. The site is incredibly beautiful, and the views to the north are especially special. So one of the things that we're hoping to do with this proposed architecture is to really kind of open up the interior of the first floor to more light air and views to the north side of the site. So we had previously talked about this, Betty had raised a concern that this room might be used as an additional bedroom. We created these diagrams to show that there's really not a way to fit either a queen size or a twin size bed into this space. This is the proposed south elevation, which is facing Hook Road. Anything that's shaded in gray is existing architecture, and then this is our proposed addition to the western side. Our intent is very much to, be respectful of the existing historic language of the house, and to create an architecture that's sort of, quiet and modest, and lets the existing historic architecture really take center stage. We're replicating. We're replicating the existing furnace detail to the extent that we can. We're trying to source historic windows that are the same size and light layout of the existing historic ones. And we're going to sort of recreate the existing, look at the existing side and the extent that we're able to. On the northern side, these are the 2 bay window additions that we've proposed, and we're really trying to work with the language of basically a porch. We're trying to open up light and air into the house and to really kind of like get more light into that first floor, which currently is pretty dark. And one of the basic, maybe this would be done on a historic house, is with a porch. They didn't typically have large ganged openings. So we're trying to work again with that language a little bit and use more historically accurate window units in the language of a porch. This is the eastern elevation, and these are light fixtures that the client has already selected. They're sort of historically accurate or in keeping with what we imagine might feel correct for the house. We are attempting to source historic window units, and this has been working with white clay field preservation to actually restore the existing historic units on the house. We're hoping that we can get reclaimed historic units to restore and install, but that's still up in the air. We're not sure if we're going to be able to source them. If we're not, we're going to propose Marvin Ultimate double hung with windows within our cheap profile. The proposed exterior doors. This is the main door on the south facade, and this has already found the swords of the historic door that we're going to restore and install hopefully. And then for the western entry and the northern entry door, we are hoping that we can find Dutch doors, which we think would have been historically accurate for this time period, although we do not have any documentation of what would have been installed in the house originally. But that's what we're hoping for. For the landscape, so this is that stacked stone retaining wall that I mentioned right here. This is the approximate location of the existing septic area. I think this section might be an outdated presentation. I'm sorry, we did add a note here saying that we were going to sort of investigate it on site and mark it. I think I submitted that site plan, but there should be that note. So we'll check for it and mark it and make sure that we're moving careful of the construction around it. The intent here is to create sort of a level pad off this northern side of the house with these terraced gardens. And the thought here is that we'll install, largely we'll leave it up to Liz to install plantings there, but the hope is that it'll really start to function as a mini garden, so it can help with some of the runoff from the roof that currently kind of goes straight down into the wetlands. We're also proposing, there's a slight floor level change, so in order to fit this addition and the peak of this gable below the existing second floor windows on the original house, we've had to drop the floor level in this addition by approximately 14.5 inches. And so in order to mitigate the grade change, we're basically proposing a very sort of like informal hand-laid stone, retaining wall kind of along this border right here. We're also proposing adding a couple of crabapple trees along the road to provide a privacy buffer. And then a single larger shrub of some sort right here also to provide a privacy buffer from the primary to the moving up to the parking area. We're also proposing some native shrubs along here, again, to help with water runoff from the parking area. Here are some details. So this is the detail of the more sort of formal retaining wall that we're proposing along with the house. This is a site section through the terraced landscape gardens that we're proposing north of the house and north of that more official retaining wall. And then this is a little detail of that sort of informal retaining wall that we're proposing south of the house in the image. This is just a site plan. We did provide an annotated version of this, but it's basically saying this is a crabapple, probably a crabapple. I think we were proposing viburnum or rhododendron with this location along here. And then the thought here is that our client is really sort of popular with this, and that it's basically a location garden herbs and these are some sketches. So this is sort of the proposed southern view from the road, showing this landscape screening to the house. And then this is the proposed western view from the parking area, looking at the new western addition to the house. And then in terms of look and feel from the landscape, we're really trying to go for planting material and hardscape material that feels as though it could have been on the site for 200 years, and that feels like it's historically appropriate for that issue of the house. I think that's probably right. Yeah. Jim.
The only question I have is the status of the first recommendation.
We haven't heard anything yet.
So unfortunately, we have to wait to hear from the DEC before the board can move forward in case they decide to make any changes.
All right, is there a site visit?
Yes.
Rick and
I went with Sharon. You want to go first, or?
It was really a nice site visit. The garden on the west side was really nice, but it's going to be moved, redone a little bit further north so that there's more room. We can come out of the back of the house. It's what, 5-6 feet?
It's currently something like that, yeah.
It's not a comfortable, people do moving here, moving around, it's not really uncomfortable. So it needs to be wider. So I think we'll construct the garden downhill a little bit. It's steep, but it's got retaining walls. The view is beautiful to the marsh. The driveway and the garage. It makes sense to put this boot room on the west side of the house, so it's closer to the garage, to project either the front door all the way down to the back door. So it's a good change.
Okay. Well, I concur. The addition to the west seems to make a lot of sense. I think it's a very sensitive treatment. They kind of give it a lower place in the hierarchy, but still keeping that same vocabulary. And it seems like a very sensible place to put it. There is an exposed chimney breast on the western side, and that's going to get covered by the new addition. The Bilco door is going to remain. That's a steel Bilco door, pretty common. This is all taking place within the perimeter of the wetlands buffer. And the additions to the north, which is 2 bay window bump outs, are really going to chew up a lot of real estate there, and there's a lot of fill that's going to have to be brought in. And also the walls that are being proposed have footings, so that's going to be a significant amount of like civil engineering work that's going to take place on this north side of the house, right at the edge of that wetland buffer. And even though it's a very small increase to the footprint, it ends up having a pretty big impact on the landscape. If you look at, I don't know if you have any pictures of the north elevation. It's kind of a very plain and homely appearance to that elevation.
If you go more towards the beginning of the,
Yeah.
so it's.
So, I mean, normally when these things come up with an old house like this, an eyebrow, of course it's going to be dark inside. You know, it's not going to have a lot of air and light. It wasn't designed that way, and it kind of is what it is. But that elevation is pretty stark. So, putting the bay windows on there, it's not visible from the street. It seems like a reasonable placement, but it is going to have a lot of impact on the north elevation and the wetlands. And the rock garden that's there is actually very, very clever, hand laid, and it looks appropriate and natural. And I think what's being proposed is a lot bigger than that and a little bit more grandiose. So I kind of like the humble little garden plot. I think it's more consistent. And then the septic area. This work is going to encroach on that. So whatever the Board of Health regulations are about separation, I mean that's for them to attend to. But it seems like it's really kind of encroaching on some borders there.
I do believe we received a referral from Rhinebeck, and I don't think they found any issues with this. Planning board members, any questions or comments?
So, we're gonna make a question, and I didn't see the earlier presentation. Is there any plans of like with the barn to do anything, or shore it up, or anything like that?
So the existing barn is historic, and there are concerns about its structural stability. Currently, like as part of the scope of work, no, but we have been speaking with our client about potentially getting someone to come in and do an analysis of it. Maybe it's just a budget issue as usually is.
And that would then come back as a new application.
I'm not sure if we talked about the pre-con. I know it does say they're structurally sound, because we did talk about this in the pre-con.
And it is structurally sound?
That's the note right here on the plans. We talked about this in the pre-con. We didn't discuss that. We don't want burns falling down.
It's structurally sound. It's like kicking a little bit, but it's not anything that's like an imminent danger.
I would have to do this to wait the JD. Let me ask if there's anyone here from the public that wants to come out from this application. Please.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Melissa Schultz. I live at 39 Hook Road, which means I'm Elizabeth's closest neighbor. And I wrote a letter because I wasn't sure I could be here, but since I'm here, I decided to speak. I'm speaking in support of this application. Elizabeth actually shared the plans with me a few weeks, months ago now, and I really appreciate the care and thought that has gone into this proposed work. I have to be honest, her house I think is the most beautiful in all of Rhinebeck, so I'm very excited about how they're able to keep the historic look and feel and character. Separately, not at my current house, but at my former house on Mill Road, I worked with the art of building, and I believe they're really exceptional at what they do. So I appreciate the proposed improvements to the home. I think they're thoughtful, appropriate, and very respectful of the historic nature of the home and our surrounding community. And I encourage the board to approve the application, and I thank Elizabeth for sharing plans and for doing this so thoughtfully. Thank you.
Anyone else? John, I think we can go to the here. Let's do this and do that. Just wait on that. Should we bring an issue with that? So, motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. So we'll be in touch and stay in touch with Gretchen. And we'll continue this until July 20. Do you have any sense of when your timeline runs out?
No, I checked in with them last week at that meeting, so.
How many days are you back?
I don't have it off the top of my head, I feel like we filed for it in November, so it's pretty close, yeah.
November?
Yeah,
It's good. It's 100 days,
yeah.
so.
Well, 90 days, then you have to send them a request to respond.
I know they came out and did a site review, they did a site walkthrough, but I haven't heard anything from them since.
I guess my question is, are we looking at 2 weeks or are we looking at a month?
Can we go 2 weeks and see if anything?
We can go
works?
2 weeks, we can schedule even 2 weeks out and hope that we have something that, but, just stay in touch with Gretchen. And, you know, if we don't have any meeting, nothing to attend, we just wait for that plans. So that would be a motion to continue until
July 6th.
July 6th. And have that motion. So moved. Motion, second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Good luck, being here soon. Next public hearing is that of Andrew Samuels, is hearing about the grant 581 South Mill Road, special permit for single family dwelling SUV.
I'm Matt Town, engineer for the project, Christian Mossman, architect. Here on behalf of Andrew Samuels and Hannah Gottlieb plan for 531 South Mill Road. It's an accessory dwelling unit and primary dwelling on a 14.5 acre lot in the RA10 zoning district. As you may recall, there were a few site visits. I think everybody's walked the property, the road. It's going to go back to the ADU. So since the previous board meeting, the plans have been revised to address the main comment, which was providing an emergency vehicle turnaround area near the ADU. Can you go to the other plans?
So this is the sheet that I had from bid 5426.
There should be a folder that I sent out. It's a-
16.
So on sheet S2,
What's that?
It's not how we do it.
well anyway, so on sheet S2 of the plans that I submitted, it shows the revised turnaround area, and what I did was I sized it large enough that a passenger vehicle could park, ambulance could be there, and a pumper truck could turn around. So it's essentially fire apparatus road turnaround, 70 feet by 26 feet. So those turning movements are shown on sheet S2. So that was the main concern, besides fault from the last meeting. There were some other revisions to be made, just a few other ones based on some drainage questions that Christian had. I provided him with calculations, I provided mitigation, I increased the size of the culverts, I proposed level spreaders to mitigate flow rates. I've got erosion sediment control on there, vegetating slope areas. So I feel that I've addressed his comments adequately. I didn't hear from him to confirm as such, but I think I've given him everything. So we also got DPW approval. We got a permit for the driveway since the previous meeting. So we now have the DPW sign off, the health department sign off, OPRHP is signed off, DEC has signed off, Scenic Hudson signed off, and we had the fire inspector sign off, the fire department spent the site and hasn't had additional comments. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Can you say your current health team?
We have health department, I provided a letter, they're not gonna give us approval until you guys do. But
Well, I don't have anything else that came down to Christian's engineering questions and comments, which
Yes, it's on there.
I haven't seen a response. I do know you've responded to them saying that you addressed all those comments.
But he hasn't really been addressed, correct?
I am not.
You know how long it's been? You know how long it's been since?
Do you know when you sent your response to Richard to him?
It was a couple weeks ago at least. I'm not sure the exact date that I sent it to, but it's been a couple weeks.
So Christian was copied on June 1st. That went out to the court.
There's the 15th.
So it's,
Should. Do you, in your opinion, have all of the outstanding issues like this?
From a planning perspective, can't speak on behalf of the church, and then you take Matthew at his word, it appears that he would have addressed his comments. I certainly can't sign off on this.
I have a question I'd like to ask.
Sure.
It's about the septic system or the accessory.
We can't hear you.
A question about the septic system for the accessory dwelling. I know that it is on a slope. And it's kind of in a wooded area, but obviously it has no trees. So it will need to be kept clear of what happens in the forest, brush and saplings and so forth, that have been mowed.
Yeah, it's the owner's responsibility. You can't have trees growing on top of the septic there.
The plan is just to mow the slopes somehow.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to, I'm not sure exactly what they'll do, but they'll certainly know that, yeah, you can't have any woody vegetation, any deep-rooted vegetation on top of the septic area. Sure.
So they might look at, there are grasses, it's shaded.
Yeah, so I don't,
It's gonna be tricky.
yeah, but I don't know that much undergrowth is gonna come up. There are, there were areas on the site where it's just clear because there is such tall trees. It's shaded,
Right.
so it's pretty well established.
What else?
I am of the opinion that the applicant has been to answer all the questions that have been raised. And I don't know that we can continue this. The petition has had ample time, I believe, to respond to the information submitted. I believe we're ready to move forward on this unless you all see an issue that I don't. Agree?
Yeah, I don't think there were any deal breakers that were under consideration.
The main reason we bring Christian in for a lot of this is to get the engineering review, to get a sign off, so you don't have to say what it had or something. I mean, it appears you addressed his comments, so I would say we've had the review and the applicant feels it's addressed the comments, so it's really building department issue now. Just trying to make sure we can catch all these.
Agreed.
Right, is the public hearing still open on this?
Yes, and CBA still has to finish their review.
Okay, so do we have to
They
wait
were
or?
kind of waiting to see where you guys.
Do we have to wait or can we?
I don't know.
What do you think, John? Can we approve conditional to the zoning board of appeals?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar offhand where this is in the ZBA process.
Public hearing. They've just been continued because while you guys are doing
Well,
your
we're
review,
Alright, so that's what's been holding their finalization.
they are on again on Wednesday. So if there's anything you guys wanna write, then say your position.
It's a draft resolution.
I would say.
Resolution drafted. So I know that the CBA's had quite a few comments on it. They took quite interest in this, right?
They were, also the last two meetings I was it's not required to attend because they were really only waiting for you, but I will go back once we have your approval, I will be there on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, they can do that. I don't know offhand whether there was a resolution drafted because the board didn't know what this board was going to do tonight, so.
Well, let me start with asking if there's anyone from the public wishing to comment on this application. If not, I think we can close the public hearing certainly, so that I have a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. So we have a couple options here.
Yeah, I mean, if the board's comfortable moving forward with the condition, you can, but if you guys move forward and accept the board moving forward and the ZBA requires something to change, you'd have to come back before the planning board start the process over. Or if they're meeting Wednesday, you can wait 2 weeks.
Just
see what
so you know, the ZBA schedule for July is the 20th, we have our vote on the 20th, and it's the 15th, so they're the week before next round.
Were they on this Wednesday?
They're on this Wednesday, and in July, they'll be on the 15th, and we don't even sure which one.
So it's whether everyone here is comfortable with conditional approval, or not. It's really
It comes down to your, as Jim's trying to say, there is a risk.
Yeah.
There is a risk, and we can schedule this, we schedule you to come back in 2 weeks, when you know you've got what you are going to, you know where you're going with the ZBA. Or we can conditionally approve tonight with you understanding the risk.
What's the issue before the ZBA? I've forgotten.
The ZBA is just waiting for the plan.
No, why is it before the ZBA?
The amount of square footage and what's the other one there? Location of it being, oh no,
No, it's a square foot,
just a square footage.
Oh.
Take care of that.
What is your preference? What is your preference?
I like coming here.
Wow.
Yeah, no, but I'm okay not coming here.
Not sure how to take that, but it's okay. We just want to be clear, you understand the risk.
I mean, from attending 3 or 4 zoning board meetings, I a good feeling that they will approve us, so I would like to take the risk.
Somebody else okay with that?
Yep.
Jim, you want to kind of use the resolution thing?
Okay, draft approved resolution for the application by Samuels and Hannah Gottlieb Graham, site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for construction of principal residence, accessory dwelling unit, and associated elements at 531 South Road within the RA10, reaffirming the actions type 2 under seeker for which reporting about under body review is not required. Based upon review of the submitted information, asking the board to find the proposed wording is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 165. With respect to the application for special use permit, asking the board to find the working intent needs to be consistent with general standards for special use permit and granting the special use permit, conditioned upon site plan. With respect to site plan, finding the working intended use consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, including the application inclusive of materials by Christine Yasios and Willingham Town Engineering, with the new date final update based on what's up here. June submission. Authorizing the planning board to stamp and sign the above-cited site plan, subject to the 3 conditions listed. In taking this action, you authorize the planning board secretary to provide the approved resolution to the applicant along with details on next steps. And remind the applicant that all plan sketches of the materials submitted to the Town of Rhinebeck Building Department for any permits must match those submitted to the planning board.
I move to be approved.
Second?
Second.
Rick?
Aye.
Aye. Release?
Hi.
Karen? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Go ahead. Good luck with your project. And good luck
Thank you.
on Wednesday.
Cross our thanks.
The next public hearing for this evening is that of local networking, puzzle, I-22, DOA, new subdivision, and lot subdivision. Sean is speaking.
Version of what's up there.
Sorry, like.
I need one, just. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Craig Zip, I'm with GPI, here on the Master Finance of the project. Been before you several times now, so what I just passed around with on the board here is kind of an updated version of where we're at with, the evolution of the design. You guys kind of saw a close version of this at the last meeting, and this was in reaction to some of the comments that we received from the board up to this point, as well as information from the site walk and some of the additional comment letters that we received along the way. So before I get into that, I just want to kind of give a big picture overview of where we are at with some various pieces of the project. So we're in the process of pulling together the application for the DOT for the permit for the driveway access points. I was out there today playing Frogger on 308, taking site visits, measurements and photos. So we're in the process with that. Then we think we're going to get some started, at least I think on part 2, so.
Yeah, I can keep going.
Okay. And then also I was talking a little bit at the last meeting about the DEC jurisdictional letter we had received. Actually, we didn't, it was the previous meeting before we got involved that received the letter. We did reach out to DEC and got some additional information from them. Jim, you're probably already aware that they've kind of gone back to what the original mode of operating was for DEC since everything that occurred. Along with that, what they did confirm for us, because there was a little bit of confusion information in that letter that we knew from them. What they said is that because of the proximity to the Lansing Hill, that's across 308 and quite a distance, but because of that, what they're looking at is, please, could you bring up the wetland? But in any event, what they're talking about is wetland A would be the only thing that's in their jurisdiction. That's the southeast corner of the site, the biggest wetland on the site, it's at that whole corner down here. More or less kind of a moot point because we're staying out of it anyway, including the buffer, so they won't come into play, but I just want to give the board an update on where that whole piece of the process stands. So they did confirm that they will take jurisdiction on this. Obviously, we're going for buffer, but we've already put on for buffer everything at the site anyway, so and avoid this kind of damage. So on to what, if you want to bring up on there to the version of this map, the very last sheet. Yeah, exactly. That's one. That way you guys can see that as a comparison. So the big difference is between what you've got in front of you, what's on this RCAP board, what's on the screen, is again from the comments we've received from the board and from the results of the site walk. We've taken these 2 lots back here, which would require crossing 2 separate drainage ways, and we've taken them out of there, and one of those we put over into this area here, which is what you're seeing on the plan in front of you. The other we just kind of fold over into this top area here. So we've taken the comments to heart. We're kind of pulling everything in. We're consolidating the footprint of the overall development. That's going to allow us to. We already had a 65 plus acres of open space that are going to be part of the project. But doing what we've done is going to allow us to, kind of make that a little bit more cohesive with larger tracks that are going to be able to be put into that. We also, in doing so, this shows as well, so the horse trails that are on the site right now, everything that's in red, the existing lines that we were gonna be able to preserve, everything that's in kind of blue circle, were the portions that we were gonna realign. Like I said at previous meetings, just to make sure we don't end up with a horse path going right across somebody's bedroom window kind of thing in the back of our house. Similar approach is still gonna be the case on the revised layout, but what it does do is it lets us keep a lot more of what was existing in this flood. We have to change as much doing this. Common driveways for the project, we've got a total of 3 access points for the project. That was the way it was previously. We have 5 lots off of this common driveway as opposed to 6 previously. You are allowed up to 6, but obviously with the redistribution one, we had 5. One of the things that we are doing is working through grading and stormwater and reaching out to CPO to coordinate that, get a virtual meeting process so we can talk back and forth on those aspects. Well, what we're doing with the common driveways, the code allows you up to 16 feet in width, 8 foot minimum. The reality, 2 cars passing, we want to make sure obviously that's possible. So we got everything shown at the 16 feet, but the other piece of this that we step now that we're going to do is make the outreach to fire to have those conversations, because my suspicion is that they're going to want, they may need to be wider than the 16 feet, at least in those certain locations. For you know, if they put outriggers down or anything like that, typically they're going to want 20. So what we're doing with the grading approach is we're showing the 16-foot width on the roads, but we're going to accommodate the potential for that 20-foot in the grade out of the road. At the last meeting, one of the questions I think we wanted to ask is if we could just kind of get you guys a rough idea of what types of waivers we might need to request from the board in order to be able to do this type of a layout. So it was the board's request as in the previous meetings that maybe we can waive some of the requirements to allow the kind of pulling things inward a little bit, consolidating the development. So along those lines, really the main things are just going to be the restrictions for buffer distances from sloped areas and working within those sloped areas themselves. I think that's primarily what we would be needing to request waivers from. Because in order to allow us the ability to pull these things inward and get it to a more consolidated footprint, that's fine for the middle here. That's going to be a reality that we've got to do in order to pull back. It does allow us to eliminate these additional, what would be a total force crossings to get the back slots. The only place we're going to have to cross is one. Let's just get into this side. The other locations don't have any of those, so it definitely is a less invasive approach. And then as I mentioned, we'll be reaching out to CPL to get those conversations moving along. Talk through the site plans themselves, the stormwater approaches. I think I mentioned this at the previous meetings, but it wasn't as big a site as we have and what the site is from a topography, vegetation, meadow, forest, that type of thing. We're going to be able to take advantage of that to take care of the stormwater so that what we won't have to do is we haven't seen big depressions in the landscape of big stormwater ponds like these kind of traditional developments to be able to let the sheep flow do the treatment for us. So I think that's the update on the big picture of where we are. I think the main thing for us, and we mentioned it at the previous meetings, is that we're really looking to kind of get a clear picture of the path forward so that we on our end making sure that we're keeping things moving forward as fast as possible, and that we know what you guys are looking for from us.
Jim?
From a planning perspective, I think that covers most everything. The only thing that we'll want to do at some point is to officially walk through the 4-step process and say that you are good with the 4-step process, which is the delineation of the open space, the location of the house sites, the alignment of streets and trails, and drawing of the lot lines. You've already signed off on the number of lots, which is essentially the sketch plan, concept plan. So that would be the formal process. I'm sure you're good with that. And then, it's just kind of details. I think the CPL and anything else that might come up Gretchenville waiver.
Do you think that the next meeting will be ready for the first step?
I think that's up to you, but I think what's in front of you, I mean, from my perspective, this is definitely more in keeping with what I was hoping to see. We've got linear development and linear areas of open space that kind of wetlands a little better. Eliminates a lot of those driveways, 2 and 6 and 7. So,
Opens up a lot of open space.
right, it keeps more use of that open space over here.
Yeah, there's lots of evidence of change there.
So it's really up to the board when you think you're ready. It's more of a cluster we've been talking about, linear cluster anyway. But it's really works.
I was just going to mention though, you'll be making a written request for the waivers, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have a format that needs to follow, or just
I
put
think
together.
it's just a written request for you being as specific as you can be.
Okay.
With a explanation of the basis for the request.
Yeah, we can submit that. I guess that's part of my bigger picture question in general, is just that we're doing these pieces. Like, ideally, what we would love to be able to do is show up at the next meeting with everything you guys already have at the end before other, we'll coordinate the CPL process as well. So if we can funnel revised plans directly to them, copy you guys at the same time.
I want you to do that, just as you're funneling it to them, make sure Gretchen's copied on that, so that we can keep track of that.
Perfect.
And then you can make sure that they're reaching out to CPL as well, and they get back to us in fashion.
And have they been formally requested to review the conservation subdivision plan? So last I was aware of told me the deal that they're asked to.
We're on that scope of the yield plan. I think you're going to talk about this with, obviously.
Yes.
So I mean that process is now just being pushed to the public.
Yeah.
So you're in communication with them on a regular basis, correct?
Well, with this now, we're going to be talking to them to keep the ball rolling. I just want to make sure that they, I don't want to have them thinking that you guys don't want them reviewing something yet.
No. We encourage CPL to speak directly with you. Moves things along much more efficiently and much more effectively. Just keep us in the loop, with whatever is going on, copy Gretchen, so we're aware of how it's progressing.
It was just that initially, I didn't think we needed to bring CPL in and have time and expense from them when we were still kind of forming the really rough concept. But once we're further down and more granular, then yeah, at this point, so especially get them.
I guess I'm a little confused. How, the zoning law requires a conservation easement held by a land trust. So how would that happen with this plan?
So,
Or
yeah, I
an
was gonna
HOA,
say,
or an HOA,
right,
or an
That wasn't my reading of the law, I have to go read it again.
There's another section that does allow for HOA. The other conservation subdivision look at, they're not proposing any HOAs. That's why that wasn't an option. By the town, by outside agency, but there is an HOA clause in there. If you want me to find it, I can try and.
I shall read it again.
No, I think in this case, we're looking at that being the entity that's going to basically manage the whole, kick the little, they're going to take care of the maintenance, they'll take care of the stormwater maintenance, they'll take care of the road, all that will come
Do you have any of that sort of outlined or drafted, or are you in the development?
So effectively, based on the plan, assuming we can move forward with this plan, you would create an HOA structure that would address the conservation, would address stormwater and overall maintenance. It would effectively be one body that would make it easy for this body to maintain the current and call it future conservation area. Right, so this would be inclusive of anything required within that area. The HOA would manage, and as part of the residency of this neighborhood, those residents would contribute to that ongoing.
Right.
And it would be an ongoing concern.
And presumably the bylaws then would be written so that any person who has a property within this 100 acres can roam around on the trails, even on another person's parcel.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. Think of it like shared public-private space.
Right.
So
You have to be a resident,
Yeah.
you couldn't be, right?
They could
Well,
get a
with the exception of the horse trails, right?
The
That's
horse trails, but under that current delineation, you'd have to be a member of the Lansing Guild Trail Association, which requires, I believe, a $50 a year and an insurance waiver.
I guess I'm asking if we've started to develop the outline of that HOA agreement without having the final approvals. I think you probably want to be developing what's going to be included in it, a kind of template for it, looking at conservation easements from your organization.
I think we have a bit, I think we could probably sketch that out.
I think we'd like to see that as being developed, so we have a sense of where we're going with it. Well, I understand that it can't be finalized until finalized here. Are there anything, other considerations for that, John, I need to be?
Well, the only thing I would say is that, you know, you shouldn't look at that in a vacuum. You have to comply with the Martin Act, so you'll need to be paying attention to what the Attorney General's office is going to require, and it's probably also time to give thought to compliance with 280A of the town law. And whether you want an open development area, or you want to ask the zoning board of appeals for a variance, the planning board looking ahead would typically want to see a copy of whatever common driveway or private road maintenance agreement that ends up, you'll have to be proposing that to the Attorney General's office as well and getting it approved by them. And the planning board also will want to see a draft of the conservation easement, and will also want to ask the applicant to consider giving the town of Rhinebeck enforcement rights of conservation easement.
Yeah, I'm just encouraging you because I don't want you to get through us and then have all that heavy. So the more you can be working on that, concurrently with what we're doing, that you have people involved easily. Anything else, Jeannie?
I have a question on the horse trails. I'm sort of confused. You've got the existing horse trails in red, and then the potential upon realignment in blue. So the blue section is not there right now?
Correct.
Right, there's some portions of the red that goes away because it would have been going right straight through a house site or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And then the blue is basically the realignment of those portions to make sure it stays, continuous.
And we having conversations with the Lansing Guild.
Yeah, so the Lansing Guild has been very, very cooperative, very happy that we're keeping the trails, and said whatever we need to do.
Have they seen this?
They haven't yet, pending your blessing, and we're looking for effectively, look, we've been doing this for a while, right? We've been talking about this plan. The irony is this plan looks a lot like the initial plan, but we're now at a place between topography, horse trails, zoning, density, wetlands, that I think we've created a conformation, effectively a place where we can agree that this is the best possible outcome. And once that we're affirmed on that, then we can go ahead and now firm up the DOT, the horse trails, all of the other elements in the plan that are required to move forward.
Do they have anything in writing now that authorizes them to use these trails?
Right now, the way it works is it's a private landowner who owns the trails, and if you're part of the trail association, you
So they have an agreement.
You do, yes, and that agreement is inclusive of the liability and the insurance required, which is most important to the membership of the annual benefits to give you access to the trails.
So I'm just saying that going forward, when we're at the right point, if you could get something from the library that they see this, that they agree, and I don't know when the moment is, but at some point it should be part of the record in my opinion. Anybody else? Anyone here from the public? Alright, so.
I do appreciate the improvement.
Yeah.
Just add, I think it was really, I think it's big improvement. Like the willingness to hear what our concerns were, so thank you.
Alright, so we're gonna continue. Craig, did you have something else?
No, I was gonna just agree with what Lee said, that was on my mind as well.
One thing I would ask, if possible, just given the timeline and the meeting schedule, if we could just try to understand kind of what the next cycle of meetings look like and what that timeline, that would be very helpful for us. Make sure, as Craig mentioned, that we're as prepared as possible, we've addressed any outstanding concerns. We'd like to try to understand a little bit of the timeline.
I don't know that we can give you that this moment, but I think Jim can take a look at it and we can discuss what we think the next benchmarks are, talk to John, and see if we can come up with something. I understand what you're asking for, and I think that's reasonable. So then I'm ready for a motion to continue the public hearing. So moved. When are we going out to?
July 20th.
I think so. July 20th. And then we'll work on the internal timeline that we can discuss. Is that good, Tim?
Thank you so much.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, and our bringing up the tail end of this evening in public hearings is that of Rhinebeck LLC, New York State Energy and Road Site Plan Special Use Permit and wetlands.
Good evening, Sean Kemp on behalf of Rhinebeck Villas LLC. I have no updates for the board.
Okay.
Leave it at that.
I will, we had a vote, and I think we announced at our last meeting that we had hoped that we would have some things drafted for this evening, and we have communicated with John that we are not able to have that for you, John. I give you an opportunity to explain where we are with that.
Well, what we're working on is a draft of the negative declaration that board directed us to draft. We have the draft in progress. We're not able to have it completed for today. And actually, the part of the problem is that when it gets completed, we need to be able to first circulate it amongst the team, and then once that final comments are taken, then it needs to get circulated to the planning board members in advance of the meeting. So anyway, we don't have something ready for tonight, but we can try to have something ready if the board puts this on another meeting for 2 weeks. We can have it ready at that time.
Okay. And I hope we all understand that it takes time to develop these things. I'm just sitting here tonight looking and realizing 1, 2, 3, 4. This planning board has gone through 6 public hearings this evening. And it takes a lot of work on Jim's part, everybody else's to prepare for those many of which were approved tonight. So we do the best we can to move things along as effectively and as efficiently, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that we're doing it properly and that we're covering all of this. So we ask for your indulgence. Sometimes this takes a little longer than we knew it might. So that being said, I don't know that there's anything from the planning board that I could raise one issue. Before I ask for public comment? Yeah, okay.
There was a document written on mitigation of part of our secret. We said that there was a moderate impact, and that was the whole development, the noise, the rock hammering and so forth. And it seemed to me that what was listed were all elements that are simply things that are in the zoning law that must be complied with, right, like public cooperation and so forth. And I wanted to suggest that some consideration be given when the rock hammering is going on, which will be 2 or 3 months according to the plan, that not be done on Saturdays. A typical work schedule would include Saturdays for normal construction, but people are usually at home on Saturdays. And so, as well as Sunday, I think it'd be great to have Saturday clear of rock hammering.
Sure. I'll report that back to the team. Thank you.
Planning board members, anything before I open it up for public comment? All right. Anyone wishing to make public comment, you're welcome to come to the microphone and state your name and offer your comments.
Mark Weeder, 58 London Lane. I would like to thank the board for their time and effort. However, I must say that I'm disappointed with the board. I believe that conclusions were made with inadequate support for such conclusions and vague answers from the developer. The neighbors surrounding this proposed development have voiced concerns about long-term impact on our wells. The developer tested 2 wells, and one of the 2 did show drawdown. The board could instruct the developer to dig 2 more wells on their own property to further test the effect. This has not been done. It has been proven that at some time there was nothing on the developer's site. There is no evidence that this issue was ever resolved, and therefore is no proof that contamination of the soil does not exist. The board can have the developer do a more extensive environmental study similar to what the town of Clinton is requiring 6 census to do. The developer states that they are going to remove over 2,000 tons of rock, but has yet to state what they are doing to do with this rock and how it will be removed or used on the property. They also state that the removal will take 2 to 3 months at this point and create moderate noise. I don't see how jackhammering that much rock for that long a period will create only moderate noise. I hope that while reviewing the site plan, the board requires that the waste treatment facility be moved closer to their structures and closer to Middle Road to better access for emergency purposes, oversight, and so it's not in the neighbor's backyard. Lastly, since the town is in the process of pursuing a tourism study, I think the board should consider a moratorium on hospitality development until the results of such study is received and the town determines its next steps. Thank you.
One point I would make, and I believe I'm right in that anytime a moratorium is declared, that is declared by the town board. This planning board does not have the authority to issue a moratorium. Pretty sure I'm correct in that.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Thank you for that. That was very helpful to know that. I have a question for clarification, if I may. I believe the parcel that the hotel wants to build on is 670686. Is that correct?
I don't have a person.
70666, yeah.
So I heard Edna mention at the last meeting that this letter from 2004, the Dutchess County Department of Health, it does mention that parcel on it. And I know it was mentioned that, I believe Edna, you mentioned that it's a different, this letter referred to a different parcel. I just want to make sure I'm correct that the parcel that's mentioned here, 670686, is in fact the parcel that the developer wants to build on. Does that make sense?
It is, but I'll check the parcel access.
Let me check the question.
Thank you. And I believe you definitely have this letter, right, from the one that Nancy, I know Nancy submitted it, Nancy Shomos submitted it.
She never resent it to me, I asked her to.
Oh, is it a hard copy okay, or do you want me to send it? I can also email it to you.
I provided it to you. I provided that letter to the board already.
Is it in the packet?
I'm also happy to leave, I have extra copies, yeah. Thank you.
Here, one of the four. Others?
Catherine Clark, 60 Women Lane. And I understand you're working on the negative declaration. I think that's a lot of issues that you brought up, but from your perspective, you've been asked and answered those. So I just wanted to ask a clarifying question on item that I brought up a few times, which is the notation on their site plan for future development. When and does that ever get discussed, and when and ever does that notation get changed before this kind of goes out the door?
Sean, do you have any comment on that?
I guess my only comment about that would be that it would be discussed in the course of the site plan review. And it's a notation that's depicted on the site plan. And as we've kind of gone over this in the past, as we have with a lot of the other issues, but I think that that's something that could be addressed in the course of the, or in connection with the site plan review.
It could also be changed.
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
of course. And I think Sean is agreeing that that is an open discussion with the planning board this time.
That's correct.
Thank you. Is that correct, John? Anything you want to add?
Well, just saying that it's being the applicant's representing to the planning board that it's just this project, what's being proposed is the only planned development for the project at the present time. And seeker would require us if there was more than that being proposed, then seeker, segmentation, the principle against improper segmentation would require that seeker look at the project as a whole, but
I know I probably may seem like I'm harping on it, but I've seen other projects where something gets kind of left in a certain notation and then it comes up later. And, then there's all sorts of discussion about, well, what was really meant at that time. What I'm hearing is there's no plans for future development. Because if there were, you'd have to consider them now.
Correct.
And so, that notation should really go away. And won't be there, but thank you for your time.
No.
Well, unless I'm wrong, the notation can go away. The notation could go away. That would not necessarily prevent any property owner from coming back in the future to request additional something. Correct?
So that's what I was going to say. So this development that's proposed right now by zoning code requires 16.06 acres of land. This is a 30-acre parcel. So if something were to come in the future, a minimum of 16.06 acres would have to be carved off for the project here. It would be a little interesting since the road goes over the wall and the septic system, how that would be done. But any subdivision would have to carve off that 16 acres of land as part of this. It's a minimum requirement. It's not that you can do whatever. So any future development would have to have a subdivision property and move forward from there. I haven't really looked into what that would mean, but because there's a minimum acreage required for the number of television posts,
But basically, I'll come back up here.
Does the 16 acres include wetland?
Because I'm always complaining about, I can't hear you. I'll come back up here. So I think what you're saying, and it's very helpful for you to clarify this, is that, okay, but regardless of that notation, let's just not get too excited about it. The parcel could be subdivided in the future for whatever parcel development, or, they might sell to whoever. It can be subdivided, they just have to preserve 16.5 acres for the hotel. Is that what I heard?
I mean, don't totally quote me on that because I haven't looked into the details, but yes, generally speaking, I think that's the case.
Yeah.
There's a minimum of 16 acres per requirement. Could they come back in and re-subdivide this and do something else? We'd have to see at the time. I haven't looked into what that would be, but there is a minimum acreage requirement for this development.
But why don't we record that acreage on one lot? Why are we
This is on
allowing?
one lot right now. It's on 30 acres. They could come in and potentially carve off a couple, like if they were to put it in another pizza place or something. They could carve off a lot fronting on Route 9G or somehow connect. I don't know.
But as part of your site plan review, could you say there can be no further development on these 30 acres? Because part of our approval is contingent on the fact that some of this is left undeveloped.
I defer to John.
I don't know.
I'm not going. I'm not.
John?
So any condition that gets attached to site plan approval has to have a basis that's connected to, meeting the site plan approval, and special use permit requirements. I would have to look further into that question to give you
I
a
guess what I,
definitive answer. It's not commonly done.
I guess
For
my
boards to restrict.
my argument in that, I guess, would be that we've had lots of discussion about water, traffic, sewage, and any future site plan development is gonna aggravate all three of those things exponentially, depending on what it is. So I don't think it's totally untoward to say that should be part of the consideration.
Well,
So,
go ahead.
so you have to remember that the planning board is limited to exercising its authority and precluding future development is really something that gets, as I said, I would have to look to see whether, if the board desired to do that, whether that would be something that would be a power that was in their jurisdiction, but the courts have a tendency to look askance at attempts to do things like that because zoning and land use regulation in general is viewed as an incursion upon property rights that landowners ordinarily have. So there always has to be a justification for any incursion into those rights. The courts typically look at those because the issue, I'll be honest with you and say that the issue about the concerns about possible future development come up quite often, and it's a concern that gets expressed quite often, particularly by people that are living around a proposed development and have concerns about it. And it comes up often in a seeker context because the question is raised whether segmentation is taking place. And what the court decisions really say is that where an applicant is assuring the board that there's no future plans, there really isn't a basis to take action on what could happen in the future. And what the courts rely upon is the idea that if an applicant says there's no future development plan, and then later at some point that applicant or a successor comes in with a plan to develop somewhere else, that the issues that are raised in connection with that plan are going to be addressed by the environmental review and the review pursuant to the zoning law that would take place when the new plan is presented to that board.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps, Catherine.
So, no, it does help.
My question about the 16 acres, does that mean it needs to be 16 acres for conforming use of the size? Is that what you were saying?
It means 16 acres are being carved out for this use. So if something else were to happen in the future, 16 acres would have to be put onto the lot for this use. How we would make that lot, I couldn't tell you, but
That would leave the other lot, the original lot, less than 16 acres. That's my question, can you do that?
Yes.
Can you have one less than 16 and the other one over? Would they have to be
Sure.
both a minimum of 16?
Well,
In
so
which
this is
case
what
it would be 32.
right, so this is what I was going to bring. So the Gateway North allows or permits uses of 1 acre per establishment.
Okay, good,
So we have a 30-acre lot.
I see.
We have a 30-acre lot, and how large does the lot need to be for this development?
This is 16 acres. And the Gateway North allows.
Wait, what is 16 acres?
So we have a roughly 30-acre lot.
Yeah.
And in order for them to build the hotel with the number of units that are proposed, they have to provide 16.06 acres.
In addition to.
Well, that's it.
In addition to meeting the setback requirements and your access requirements and
That's,
Right.
so basically they're underdeveloping the lots. From what they could. Yes.
that could be worked for them.
Yeah.
Because the Gateway North allows developments to be done essentially 1 acre per per use, which would be these small, they go with the small uses that are already there.
But not if it was residential. Then it'd be kindergarten.
Well, residential, that's a different criteria in this district.
Okay, yeah, never mind.
There are a lot of different uses that can be done here, and a lot of different mixes, and that's why it's hard to know. I mean, so what we're talking about is hypothetical potential future development, but the zoning code as it's written now allows for use to go around like.
But I guess I tend to see some similarities and things, so let me just, I'm sure you're so sick of this educational thing, keep wasting on me, but so in the prior project that was up here with the 308 subdivision, the reason they're talking about being able to put 60 acres, or whatever number it is, aside, is because they're offering that in order to get the subdivision through. That's not something we've asked them for.
No, it's a requirement. So the code requires that amount, that it requires a significant amount of open space set aside.
But they don't do this because it's commercial.
Well, and it's not being subdivided. That's for a subdivision.
Okay.
And this is, I think, the note that you were talking about, right here.
Yeah.
And these are all required setbacks. And I think it's 150 along the frontage of.
Yeah, this.
And there's a minimum separation from the wellhead. You know, all of this development in here kind of obviates the opportunity to develop in other parts of the envelope. You know, just by putting I mean, if you could take this and move it over here, you know, that would actually increase the likelihood that this could be.
That's great, but can I just add one little thing? The problem I have with that wording is none of you are here when they come in. And this site plan is approved the way it is. You're gonna come in and say, it was already approved that can be developed.
This
If you
record
take-
remains.
Yeah, but I understand, but if you take the wording out, the wording just doesn't need to be there, is the point. This doesn't need to say reserved for future development. The wording just comes out, we don't have to worry about anybody's assumption of what that meant. That's what I'm saying.
I would say that even for future generations, the fact that it's on there is a clue to future generations that this was discussed. You take it away, and somebody just looks at that in the future, there's no indication that it was even discussed. But you go back.
It doesn't need to be, because whoever's coming in, they have to come in with a brand new plan. But they can't come in with a brand new plan and say, hey, back then, they knew we planned on redeveloping. We told them this, okay? I'm saying, if you take the wording out, they still have to come in with their plan. But you don't run that risk of them being able to say, hey, it's already been approved that we
No,
can
no,
develop it.
that, I hear what you're saying. I have to have confidence that future members of planning boards will look at this as carefully as we have.
Well, I think also we can, I think the point is well taken from the standpoint of, I think the board, and you know we've done this on other occasions, okay? We came through Rockledge and Locust Hill. We do make an effort to try to explain. Your point is a good one, that this board won't be here all the time, and you don't know when the next project comes in, okay? So to educate future boards, we tried to put in detail about what it is that this board's intentions are, so that they can be understood well by a future board that comes along. I would just say from this board's standpoint, we can talk about that language. That space is going to be affected. I defer to Jim on this, but that space is going to be affected, in my opinion, when you're going forward with site plan. This project has to meet not only site plan criteria, but special use permits required here. And there are general special use permit requirements that apply to all developments. A lot of those requirements have to do with how the project harmonizes with the area in which it's situated. So, you know, my recommendation to you is that whether that note stays there or not is something that can be taken up again, and it probably is appropriate to look at it again during the site plan.
Thank you.
I just have one thing to add with respect to the letter that Ms. Schultz brought up. there was a comment that I made in the past, and I believe, Edna, you might have made a comment similar to it. The only indication or the only reference to the property at issue is in that red line. The body of the letter does not reference the parcel that's at issue. So I just wanted to clarify that. And two, Craig, I also agree with you that the way that the site is laid out, it makes the idea of any type of future subdivision very unlikely. But, you know, we can deal with these issues during site plan. I appreciate the board's attention to the detail, taking the hard look under secret. Jim, I know that it's a lot of work. John, I know you've been doing a lot of work too. So if there's any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Well,
May I just correct something that was said? Melissa Schultz, again, 39 Hook. That's absolutely not true. What this says, I think it's ambiguous, but what this says is that the site visit included walkthrough from the access drive east of this particular property through parcel 653645 and out via an access drive on parcel 588694. So we have no idea which of these 4 plots mentioned in the above they actually took the soil from. I just want to clarify that because what Sean said is not true. Thank you.
I'm not going to get into an argument, but when you look at the totality of correspondence that's been produced, and I've written extensively on this issue, there's nothing in the body of any letter that indicates that there was any type of dumping or anything like that on the parcel that's at issue. And it's plain and simple. It's as simple as that. You can look at the public record. I've been all written out in letters and things of that nature, and together with supporting documentation. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to engage in a back and forth.
Can I get that? I've never seen those letters. Where can I find those letters?
They're all in the file.
They are on Google Drive. Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you. I think we're ready to continue the meeting.
What's the path of progress? Where are we and what happens next?
You need to get the seeker, the draft seeker, take a look at it and talk with myself and John about whether or not you have any questions or concerns. We'll read that out, I guess in the July 6th meeting. Talk about that, and then the board really needs to do approval of the seeker before you can discuss the potential approval of the project itself.
I believe,
Site plan.
John, you said earlier you hope to have the draft done within 2 weeks.
For whatever meetings, 2 weeks.
July 6th. So we will be continuing this to July 6th.
Yes, and then I would expect that meeting will spend time going through that document.
We're gonna document it ahead of time a little bit.
That's 24 hours.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Well, I know that John's committed to complete it as quickly as he can, and that's his goal, so. Anything else? Then I need a motion to continue until July 6th.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I believe that concludes our business for this evening, so I am ready for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries.